Time now for our last segment of the show, our favorite segment, of course. It's first time to take a look back at last week's picks before we take this week's picks. I really don't think we need to focus much on the Week 8 picks.
I think we can a little bit. How about that? 20-14, top dog. All right, we'll see how Tony Pike can do.
Yeah. Speaking of Tony Pike, let's bring in today's guest picker, who is a Cincinnati Bearcats legend. Emphasis on legend. He was a quarterback for Cincinnati who won back-to-back Big East titles and had an undefeated season in 2009. Pete mentioned him. Tony Pike, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited, and I know that things are going well for the Bearcats if we're getting the opportunity to do this. So that's a win-win for me.
Well, let's see how you do in wins with this week's picks. We're going to start in Orlando with number 11 BYU traveling to UCF. Kickoff for that one is at 3:30 Eastern on ESPN. Who do you have in this one?
You know, the bounce house is a little bit shaky right now because of the way this team has played. KJ Jefferson had so much excitement going into the season, and they were so close to the upset last week. I just think that's so deflating for UCF. I'm a quarterback guy. I trust BYU's quarterback more right now, so I think BYU goes on the road and gets a win.
I'm going exactly with what Tony said. Quarterback play BYU.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me, but I'm going with BYU as well. Moving on, Texas Tech at TCU, 3:30 on Fox Eastern time, I should say. Tony, who do you like in this one?
You know, I'm going with Texas Tech here, probably because I made the road trip to Texas Tech and I saw how well they played against the Bearcats earlier in the season. But this is about Taj Brooks for me. If you're going to go on the road and win in the Big 12, you got to be able to do it with the ground game. I think they rely on Taj Brooks, and I think Texas Tech gets an upset.
Texas Tech.
Yep, Texas Tech. I think we can all agree on that one. Oklahoma State at Baylor, 3:30 Eastern on ESPN+. Who do you like in this one?
You know, Baylor with an impressive win last week. Oklahoma State has been one of the bigger disappointments in the Big 12 and in college football. Again, a team that was close to pulling off the upset against BYU. I just think there's lasting effects from that. Now they got to go on the road to Baylor. I think Baylor doubles up here after a big win last week and knocks off Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a Baylor team that's better than people think right now. I like Baylor.
Okay, this was hard for me as well, but I am going to go with Oklahoma State on this one. I just feel like they're due for a big win, so the Cowboys have my pick in this one. West Virginia at Arizona, that's at 7 o'clock Eastern on FS1. Who are you feeling in this one?
You know, this is a hard one for me because early in the season, I loved the way Arizona was playing, especially that win over Utah. But lately, it feels like they're trending in the wrong direction. And this is the time of year where you think if West Virginia's going to start to piece it together, it'll be now. I don't know if Arizona bounces back from that loss to Colorado. And I think that said more about Colorado than Arizona. But I'm going to take West Virginia with the upset here.
Arizona for me.
Ooh, I'm going West Virginia on this one. Moving on, Utah at Houston, 7 o'clock kick on ESPN+. Who do you like in this one, Utah or Houston?
Utah has dealt with so many issues this season. Obviously, Cam Rising is out, which means that they have they got to fill a void on the offensive side of the ball. But I've seen this Houston team in person. They're just not there offensively. I think Utah can score enough, and I still believe in that Utah defense to get the win on the road.
Yeah, if there's a team that has more question marks than Utah, it is Houston on the offensive side of the ball. I like Utah.
Okay, I'm going with Utah as well. Moving on, Kansas at number 16, Kansas State. This is a big rivalry game, 8 o'clock kick on ESPN2. Who do you like in this one?
And when the schedule came out, I was so excited for this because Kansas had playoff aspirations going into the year, and it's been a disappointment. But Avery Johnson for Kansas State has not been a disappointment. He has stepped right into the quarterback role. And again, as we started with BYU, UCF, I'm a quarterback guy. I'm going to ride the quarterback who I think can propel his team, and I think Avery Johnson does that with Kansas State in a rivalry game.
Yeah, I'll go with Kansas State as well on this one.
Kansas State for me as well, to your point, because of Avery Johnson. Last but certainly not least, the big one, Cincinnati at Colorado. This game's going to be a lot of fun. 10:15 kick on ESPN. Who do you like in this one? I feel like that's a loaded question for you as a Cincinnati guy.
You know, Dion has ties to Cincinnati. He spoke at Big 12 Media Day that this game sold out in the summer. He spoke very highly of Cincinnati, and there's certainly a respect. But I talked to my co-host and my good friend Mo Egger this week, and Mo said, you know, I think that Colorado has the best two players in the game. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are the best two players on the field. But I think if you put the rest of the players in a pool, I think the next 4, 5, 6 best players come on the Cincinnati side of the ball. Colorado's going to score. They're way too talented to not score. But I think UC defensively, being in these big games before, they've played in a lot of close games. They've played in road games. in the Big 12 in raucous environments. I like UC because I like Brendan Sorsby in this offense to score more points than Colorado on the road.
I like the call back to Dion as a Cincinnati Red, but I'm going to go with Colorado.
Oh, okay. This was another hard game for me to pick, but I'm going with Cincinnati as well. I really like the Bearcats right now, rolling, winning 4 of their last 5 games. So Cincinnati has my pick. Tony, thanks so much for joining us. We'll find out next week on Inside the 12 how you did on your picks, but thanks for joining the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me.